Okay, we're gonna do a dryer startup. We hit start and we're gonna hit assisted start. So if we were just running and we know where we need to be, we know where we're at, we would go to manual operation and then get it started up and then go to auto. But when you're doing a cold start or a restart after an hour of off time, or if it's an initial start like with wet grain, you would hit assisted start and accept. Dryer's full, dryer full, proceed. So if we had just filled the dryer with wet corn, we would hit initial dry. But since we did our warm up already on this dryer, it was an initial start, but we had to shut down due to other conveyance behind the dryer. So I'm going right to continuous flow. And due to the speed the dryer is capable of doing, we're going to have burner 3 turned off, but we would enable whatever burners we want to run. We tap in here, what moisture corn we have coming in, what we want coming out. So I normally put in here, we got about 21% going in, but I normally put in here about 1% higher than what reality is. So I want to make sure I'm not moving too fast. So I want to be slightly slow on my grain movement. So if I'm removing 5% moisture, I put about 1% extra in. If I'm removing 10%, I put about 2% extra in, just to make sure I remove enough moisture. And you'll see why I do that later, to get my column temp up quicker, to get it into auto quicker. So I'm going to bump this. That should be good, actually, because we only have, yeah, and warm up. I always run a warm up of at least 2 minutes. If the dryer was actually cold, I'd run a 5 or 8 minute 5 minute warm up probably. 2 minutes is kind of my minimum, just all depends. I like to get the dryer warm before we start moving grain. Okay, it says 20% is a chart speed. I'm gonna go with that and start warm up. So now what's gonna happen is my fans are gonna start. I have a 20-second delay between them. So they're all gonna start up one at a time. My burners are gonna start. It's gonna warm up for spend 2 minutes getting started. Once everything's running, then it's gonna trip and want to start the unload system. And I'll get back to you when the unload system is ready to start. But for now, it's just getting everything started up and running. Okay, now we got our warm-up done, so it wants to start stabilization. So it'll give us 5 minutes to start stabilization, and we're gonna start that a while. Now the unload starts at our 20% unload, and it's gonna run for 179 minutes. But we had actually been running for 40 minutes earlier, so we're gonna let it run for about 2 hours longer now, until we got a steady column temperature, and then we're gonna put it in auto. So if you look right now, we're at 3 o'clock. So I will get back to you in about 3 hours. We'll look in here. Our moisture graph, it's pretty stable. Column temp. Graphs, column temp. Our column temp was getting fairly stable, about 105. Then we shut it down and cooled it off some. So that should come back. So we're gonna let it rip. And in about 2 hours, we'll be ready to switch it to automatic. So it starts adjusting the roll speed on its own. Like right now, we have the unload speed locked in, and it shows manual even though we're running the stabilization period. So we could let it go the full time, but 2 hours in, we'll put it to auto. Okay, so we're ready to switch to the dry bin. So we have 117 minutes left there, but we want to switch to the dry bin. So we are going to turn the unload off. We're going to skip the stabilization. We're going to turn the unload off, and that way they can swing the distributor. Then we'll turn the unload back on, and then we're just gonna let it run for a while before we put it in automatic. Okay, so we got the distributor switched, so we're going to throw the unload system back on, and we're going to come back here. It says stabilization complete just because we skipped it. And now we're rolling along. This moisture is showing like 15%, but that's running about 1% low. I need to do a little checking there. That's uncommon. This is the 10th Mixflow dryer I'm starting this year, and only one other dryer that I started was the moisture not right on startup. So I'm going to do a little other checking and verifying before I calibrate the moisture sensor on the screen. So we're at 4:30, been cruising along. This temperature average is running a little hotter than I'm used to. We probably got some dry corn coming. If we look at our tools, bushel calendar, it shows we unloaded 3,500 bushel. Dryer holds 43, a little over 4,300 bushel. So I'm guessing once we get that 4,300 bushel through, we're gonna have some pretty dry corn coming out here. So I want to keep an eye on that column temperature. It's running pretty steady at that 110. Pretty certain that number's gonna have to come down closer to 105. But I'm thinking, for how this thing's been running, we're gonna wait until we got this full pass. Since this is initial startup, we're gonna wait till we got a full pass before we throw it in auto. If this was a restart where there was dry corn in the dryer and we were restarting, then I would throw it in auto right now if I knew what this number needed to be. But we want to do a full pass, see what our moisture does, and then we'll know what this number needs to be then. So we're only running 3 out of the 4 burners, the 2 bottom end ones, and then the top one, this one here we have off. But you run it all the same, whether you're running 1 burner or 4 burners. So I was struggling with the dryer here. I would normally have it in automatic by now, but we're coming along at 16% out. And it's just steady 16% out. If we go in here to bushel calendar, we have almost 4,000 bushel through. We've done almost a full pass. With the numbers I plugged in, we should have 15% here, but I just looked at the incoming moisture records, and the incoming moisture is running 21%, but it is running on 57 to 58 pound corn. So that heavy of corn is drying harder because we have more pounds of corn in the dryer. So we're gonna have to bump our temperatures up. We're gonna bump that temperature up, and we're gonna bump, we'll go here, we'll give that 180. Let's get that to 180. Let's get this to 145. Okay, that makes sense. Now we're gonna put it in auto. I normally wouldn't when we're not where we want to be, but I've started enough of these. We can throw this in automatic. We're gonna go to automatic. That's our goal there. We're gonna run column temperature, and we're gonna set this at we're gonna say a 113 for now. Probably adjust that as the night goes on, and hit OK. Now start automatic. Now if you look, our column temperature, our control setting is column temperature. Now if we go in here to our column temperature, we've been running along pretty steady on that 110, but since, yeah, that's been an hour that we're pretty steady on 110 degrees on column. So we're gonna go back. That 113 is what we're gonna run, and we're gonna let it roll. Since I bumped them plenum temps up, should be all right. I went 5 degrees on this, 10 on that. Went up 3 on here about from what it was running on average. We're gonna put that to 114. Okay, now we're gonna let it run, and we're going into the storage bin now. So I'll check back in a little while. We've been running along at auto a while. I changed my column temp to 111. We are running a hotter column temp due to the test weight, I believe. That's what I'm going to blame it on. But if we go in here, column temperature's been running fairly steady, about 110 for almost 2 hours now. And we're getting upper 14s to 15 coming out, which is good. So probably change this to a 110. And we're gonna let it just keep cooking along. Seems to be doing a pretty good job. That's how you start a Mixflow dryer. Now, as time goes along, we watch our moisture. You pull a moisture sample. Don't take this number to the bank. This number is just a good visual. And adjust this accordingly to keep that number, to keep your outgoing moisture correct. So if you're within 1% of what you want on your outgoing moisture, only change this no more than 2 degrees every couple hours at the most. I like to say don't change, once you have it dialed in that it's doing what it's supposed to, I'd like to say don't change it more than 2 degrees per day. But I'm going to limit it to 2 degrees per every couple hours. But if we go in here, there's another thing. If we go into tools, nope. So if we go in here to settings and we enable admin settings and we go to unload settings, we have the loop control. In here, we have the moisture gain, temperature gain, reset rate, derivative rate, lag rate. So this is a 17 tier dryer. I'm running a 150 lag rate and 900 900. I don't like to see that gain get over 80. If the gain gets over 80, things seem to get out of control. So I lower this lag rate when I want a better response. Now, I normally run between 100 and 300 on this here. So this is something that's, I isn't a science, but this 17, I'm running on 150. Depending how happy the customer is, we're gonna let it there, or we may change that. We may drop that if we want a faster response. But this here is where you adjust how it operates. One thing in here is if this was a screen type dryer, you would leave all these numbers factory, except for temperature gain, you would put to 80. Single module, screen type dryer, temperature gain, you run at 80. That makes them work flawlessly. Okay, that brought that 110 into line there, running real close to that 15%. So we're gonna just let it roll at that, and I will probably leave here soon if it looks like it's gonna continue doing what it's supposed to do. So we've been rolling along a while now, made a few minor adjustments here, bumped my plenum temp up to 180 and 145. That's still turned off, and we got 15.2, 15.4 moisture coming out. 15.3 average. So that's pretty nice. It's been rolling along in automatic for a little while now. And that's about it on how to do a startup.